Hello everybody, Fernando Perez here, the world music guitars guy. I like to call it like that always. So I recently made a video answering a lot of questions for a lot of guitarists who were writing to me about how to play Indian music or Indian slide guitar, or Indian music in general on a guitar. Yeah, we got the example of the great masters from India playing the different names they have for their slide guitar, like Mohan Veena, Chaturangi, Kamalas Veena, etc. Yeah, many guitar players, like myself, try to learn Indian music. We really love this music and we like to do it on the guitar, our instrument. Yeah, so the closest we get to the slide guitar is probably the regular acoustic bottleneck type of playing, but we have other options. On the previous video I was explaining how to just get a normal acoustic guitar or a standard guitar, even an electric guitar with steel strings, and playing with the bottleneck with the slide on the finger, and what tunings to use and different nuances and details about how to get things right to start playing Indian music. Because otherwise it gets tricky, not just learning the music, but already like using your instrument for that. But it's also the question of people who likes to play lap style, like Weissenborn players, like this type of guitar, or just lap steel guitar. It could be also an electric lap steel too. I always recommend, that if you want to get the closest to the actual, the original sound, getting an acoustic, doing it on an acoustic instrument, it always gets closer. So I got here a few things I like to share with all guitar players who wants to actually pursue Indian music, but on the lap style, on the lap steel style, I should say. So first thing will be tuning. Well, fortunately we can use the same tuning that we're using on the regular standard acoustic guitar with the slide, if you watch the previous video. Otherwise, I will remind you here, the original tuning I used to use in both guitars was the one coming, inspired, I should say, not exactly the same one that you could use on a Chaturangi or Mohan Veena, etc., but something close to it. And that would be like from 6th to 1st string would be D-A-D, D-A-D. Okay, D-A-D, D-A-D, it's just double the same thing. Just because the ideal would be D-A, 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 like that, and D, but because of string gauges, and tension, we're not allowed to do that. We will have to have a special gauge of strings on the guitar, And like I always say, my approach is like trying to keep the guitar as just the way it is, the way we have it, so we can play these different styles of music from all around the world, but actually continue playing whatever else we're playing, or the normal stuff, we would say sometimes, And also, if you are kind of guy that like to come up with their own style, fusion in different styles, you want to, you don't want to change gauges or tunings or stuff and lose whatever you learned previously. It is true, I should say here, that for certain ragas in Indian music, you could actually use the same open tuning that you would use on a Weissenborn in this case, or even on a standard tuning on a normal guitar. Some of them, they will work well, but not all of them, okay? Because of the resonance, the important notes that they have, that they use on the ragas, etc. So really, I leave those for when I have a concert and I have to play only one Indian song and the rest I'm playing something else. I will choose one of those songs so I don't have to change tunings or change guitars or things like that. But in general, if you want to play more Indian music all over, then tuning closer to the Indian instruments will be better, and still allow you to play other things, of course. So the second tuning, and this is the one that I'm actually kind of like promoting the most in these days, because it's something I kind of thought of recently. Not that I invented myself or anything, but I just found an arrangement that I think it works much better to get more of the functions that we will get from the Indian instruments, or even in the Indian guitars, with all the sympathetic strings and stuff. And that's the one I have here, that is C, G, C, G, C, C, double C on the first and second string, okay? So C, G, C, G, C, C, okay? Great things about this tuning, as I mentioned before, You get really low, sounds really nice on the guitar, it's very rich. You can also use capo on the acoustic guitar or even on the Weissenborn. I don't have the capo with me, but there are special capos for these instruments. So you can go to C sharp, D, E flat, E. So if you're working with different singers, with a different register, or different Indian instruments even, you know, like I always mention, you know, some sitar players, they like to play more on C sharp because of the tension of the strings, etc. So you can do that easily. You can adjust much faster and better, okay? Of course, as usual, it's a friendly tuning. Both the D tuning and the C tuning, they are really friendly for any guitar, okay? Even if you have like a very inexpensive instrument and you're not sure, you don't want to break the bridge or anything on the guitar, these tunings are, we're lowering the tension. So we're not adding more tension to the guitar, so there is not really a danger of popping up the string or breaking the wood or any stuff like that, you know. So another thing that I actually, at this point, I would say I will recommend you to watch the video where I'm explaining how to apply the Indian slide guitar on the regular acoustic guitar, even if you're gonna do it lap style, because there I'm saying some tips and some pieces of advice that I think will apply to for the lap steel. So in case I forget any detail on this video, watch the one. I think it will be helpful, and just in case, yeah, just get it covered. So things, you know, always having like a nice, rich sounding instrument helps, you know. Not that it's totally necessary to learn, but it helps, and especially the strings, you know, having like really nice, fresh, clean strings, you know, not very old strings that are, you know, cover on sweat and dirt and stuff. You know, some people keep the strings for too long, so they lose a lot of the sound and fidelity. When you have really nice, clean, fresh strings, you keep them well, they're gonna resonate better, and they're gonna, and especially for Indian music, since we don't have sympathetic strings here, this is gonna help to hear better the overtones, the harmonics on the different notes and strings. So it's gonna produce a richer sound that gets closer to the original Indian sound, okay? So that's for it. And the gates, you know, if you usually play a lap style type of instrument like a Weissenborn, etc., you're not gonna have any problem with the gates because it's probably gonna come already with heavy gates, you know. Otherwise, if for whatever the reason you're having a gauge that is very light, I would suggest to change it already for a lap style guitar. It's much better. Like right now, if I remember right, I think I have like a 0/14th on my first string there, and I think it's 17th, somewhere around 24th neighborhood, 32. Okay, this fourth string is quite interesting on Weissenborn. I've talked about it in other videos, you know, because depending if you like to change a lot of tunings or play Hawaiian music and then blues and now Indian, etc., it's a string that sometimes string sets, you know, that we buy tend to have a gauge that is too thick. So when, not that it breaks, but when you actually release and tie the string to change the tunings, it's one of the strings that is gonna break a lot because you're bending the wire, you know, the steel, yeah. So I always recommend to get something around like 0.32, which is a little bit more flexible. I think the packages usually come with 0.34 or something like that, yeah. And then the rest is the common one that you will get on a set of strings for a steel guitar, yeah. All right, that would be the gauge. Picks, okay. Plastic picks or similar are gonna always work better in general in this instrument, okay, because they don't make so much noise when you know, when you plug the strings. They don't make that clicky, you know, noise, you know, like the metal strings. I even remember an artist whose name I'm not going to mention here in India when I was living there, and this artist was having a problem that the instrument that she was using, I was trying to avoid saying she, so you don't know if it's she or he, but anyway, the instrument that she or he was using was very bright. And Indian music, they like kind of like a smooth tone, yeah? It is funny because speaking with her, it was like, she actually kind of covered the sound hole a little bit to make the guitar sound darker, and she didn't realize that she was using metal picks and getting a lot of noise and a very bright sound, which she didn't like, you know. So sometimes ignorance makes things like that, you know. You're sacrificing the sound of the instrument because you don't know, you know, she could have just changed the picks and and problem solve, yeah, and still don't reduce the sound of your instrument. But anyway, it's just an anecdote, not meaning to criticize this artist or anything like that. I mean, she's wonderful and a great player, and I'm sending much love for her from here, whoever she is. So anyway, so that's why I was saying picks, are important, that you have like some plastic or similar type of picks, so they are not very noisy. Even bare fingers are fine for Indian music. If you are playing without picks, it's fine. I never recommend playing with bare fingers on Weissenborn and lap steel guitars in general if you are using them more for other styles that are not Indian, mainly because of some kind of picking and tricks that you can use on this guitar, but it only happens when you have picks, all right? Of course, when you pick your picks, get something that is like a thick plastic, you get different brands nowadays, but some of them you'll notice that the plastic is kind of thinner and they get, they dance a lot around your finger when you're playing. They're not like tight on your finger. So watch for that, the gauge or the thickness of the plastic in the pick, and you see a difference. If you want to know, the ones I've been using for years are the famous Dunlop. Everybody probably knows that brand, and they have some great picks. Also, I think Planet Waves. I think they have some nice thick plastic picks. But I know other brands. I don't remember right now the names, that they try to come up. I don't know. Maybe they try to come up with less expensive picks or whatever, and they sacrifice in the quality of the plastic or the material or the thickness. And that makes a pick that, you can play, but in no time the pick is just dancing around your finger. It's very uncomfortable. It doesn't hold to your finger right. So anyway, let's check my list here. I don't forget anything. Slides. This is like the tone bar, bullet, whatever you want to call it. This is the typical also Dunlop, that we use on Weissenborn guitars. You can find other shapes too, like the ones that our dobro brothers use, brothers and sisters. For the dobro, that's pretty cool. It's more limited in techniques that you can do with that bar. I don't have it here, so I always recommend this one. If you watch my videos on Weissenborn or my tutorials, I'm explaining a lot about the bars, the differences and things like that, okay? Because a lot of people tend to go for a certain type of bar that is easier to hold at the beginning, and then halfway through their learning, they need to change the bar because they found out the shape and the type of bar they're using is limited, and they cannot do certain tricks or techniques, or they're more difficult, even though at the beginning they felt more comfortable. So this one might feel a little bit slippery at the beginning, but it's really, for me, is the bar, for any style on lap steel playing. So you have the steel ones, but something you're gonna find with this is like it's quite heavy, which is nice for many styles, but for in Indian music, you're gonna find yourself going up and down a lot and very fast, all these kind of things. So sometimes you can find this same type, but just a little bit thinner, okay? It's not that common, but I know some brands are making. That depends where you are in the world, you can find it or not. You can find these other ones that are like ceramic bars, or something similar to the ceramic material, They are lighter. Their tone is not as great as the steel, but it's still good enough. And they are gonna make a little bit more friction noise, like when you go on the strings. Not that it's like a lot of noise, but it is a little bit more compared to the steel one. But they are lighter, as I was saying, and you're gonna feel that you can move much faster, because you don't have so much weight. So that would be about bars, definitely. And it's important, that you have a good technique, not just on the right hand, but the left hand, especially for the lap steel playing and even the bottleneck players. I've seen a lot of people playing great bottleneck or trying to play it for many years and still getting some problems, because most of us, when we learn, we just put the bottleneck on the finger or just hold the bar whatever way we can, and we try to slide it, and since we get the sound already, we think that that's enough. But no, there are certain details and nuances on how to hold the slide in the different types of slides it's gonna make your playing much easier, less noisy, unless you want to get noise, depending on certain styles, okay? it's going to be much easier to tune your notes because you're going to control better. And especially on the lap steel players, when you try to do slants and different techniques where you move the bar, it's going to be also easier when you have the right way of holding the bar. For this, all I could say is just maybe recommend you some of my tutorials that I have on lap steel, on Weissenborn and lap steel guitar. I think there was some old videos I made some years ago. And that was like 3 levels for lap steel playing, and in those I'm actually explaining really well to the detail on how to hold well the bar and everything. I know it sounds sometimes silly, and sometimes you will think that looking into the internet, as many things as you can find nowadays, you'll find it, but no, and there are very few, if any, that videos or information where they're actually explaining you every single nuance and detail. And they are very simple once you know them and they told you, and they really make a change, all right? So that's that. And what else? This is lap steel playing Indian music. But let's say you have an acoustic guitar, you don't have a Weissenborn or a lap style, but you still would like to play lap style. Well, you probably know, and if not, I'm telling you here, that there are these little things called nut racers, or they might have other names too. You can find it probably on the internet on different shops. They used to be, I don't know how much they are right now, but they have always been really cheap, like $5 or less, and it's just a little thingy that you get, a little metal bridge that you lose your strings on your normal acoustic guitar, and you put it right here over the other nut, and they just raise the strings, so you have them higher, like on a lap steel playing, And this is cool because you can always take it off and go back to your acoustic guitar. So you have a regular acoustic guitar, electric guitar with steel strings, whatever, and you want to try the lap style, you can do so. I was explaining on the previous video of the tips and tricks for playing Indian music on an acoustic guitar, that also you could play lap with a regular acoustic guitar. Actually, let me show you here. You could also, you don't have to use that nut racer, but you could use a very light slide like this, like the ceramic one, and still play, and still play like this. It's going to be trickier because your strings are very close to the fretboard and you might hit the frets a lot. That's why I'm going to recommend you, if you do it like this, not raising the strings or having a proper Weissenborn guitar or lap steel, just a light slide because it's easier to control. Okay, it's not going to dig on the strings as much as the steel, the heavy one, that is made of steel. Like I said, on the previous video I made, I was explaining more about that. You can watch that. So a nut racer, if you want to just turn your guitar into a lap steel, you can use that nut racer. It's something very easy, very cheap. I remember even one time I was traveling on the Middle East and I had a concert I didn't expect, and they were asking me to play some Hawaiian music and stuff. I didn't have a Weissenborn or anything like that. So I just took the acoustic guitar and I actually took I think it was a screw or a nail I found on the house. And I just put it down here, on top of the fretboard and raise the strings like that. So, you can be creative. Just be careful, with your guitar, don't destroy it. Okay, and one last thing I would like to explain, if I might, is actually how this tuning functions. This last one that I'm recommending so much, okay, for both guitars, the regular acoustic and this. And this is about the tuning. We have the tuning C, G, C, G, C, C, okay? So these two Cs are like this for a reason. You see, usually on Indian instruments or on the Indian guitar, we have these drum strings or resonating strings, They can be tuned in many different ways, but one common way to tune it is on the root and the fifth. Okay, they take different colors depending on the raga that we play in, yeah. And actually, hence, you can actually adjust this tuning that I'm giving you the foundation of the tuning, but you can adjust it to different ragas too by changing those strings. So basically, you're gonna have this third and the second string are gonna work like your drum strings. Okay, so what happens is like your first string is a string that you're going to be using a lot to play the melodies, because usually in Indian music we mainly have the melody working around the middle octave, a little bit on top, on the top octave, and a little bit on underneath, on the low octave. Okay, just one octave and a half here and another half here. So on the first string you already have the central octave that we work on a lot, and the top. Okay, so all that you keep it on the first string, and that allows you to keep the second and the third string ringing freely as a drum. Okay, now if you want to go to the low octave, then you just jump down to the third string. So then your drum strings here are substituted for a minute by the second and the first string, which has just the tonic, like the sa, the first note, okay, which works for the time being, and when you're free, you can just go back to the second and the third, and you still have your fourth, fifth, and sixth string, giving you the root and the fifth, the sa and the pa, which helps you to create that, that the background sound, on the music. And also they help if you let them ring, because when you play on the top string, and your bottom strings will be also resonating. This is also the importance of what I was mentioning earlier about having nice, fresh strings, preferably a good sounding instrument, because in that way everything is just gonna collaborate, in a way, and make the whole thing ring better. All right, that's it for this video. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I solved a lot of your questions and doubts. You can continue writing to me anytime. I'm super pleased to reply to all of you. And like I said, if you have any suggestions for any video of things that you're wondering, be it on Indian music, guitar, or any of the rest world music traditions that I'm playing on the guitar and I'm studying, it's always my pleasure to share. I invite you to come around my website, where you'll find many books and a lot of material to listen and enjoy the music, to just watch the different guitars from around the world, or just educational stuff, books, videos, courses, etc. Especially if you're a guitar player and you would like to learn those styles. All right, see you on the next. Bye now.